your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Hey, good evening, horror fans. Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Horoscope. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt. And Matt, this week we're going to talk about houses of horror. And this is kind of a fundamental core category. The haunted house has been around since the early days of horror, from 1927's The Cat and the Canary to Old Dark House from 1932 with Boris Karloff, and right up to today. In fact, the last 15 years, there's been a glut of people buy a house and discover something wrong with it, movies that have really kind of oversaturated the market, in my opinion. But what do you think of House of Horror as a category?
It's one of my favorite style of horror movies because your house is your sanctuary. It's your house is your safe place. It's where we construct a living space to get away from the wilderness and away from all of the treachery that can happen in nature and in the world. And when that safe haven becomes a place of horror, like you have nowhere else to go. And it also adds that level of claustrophobia. There's always like the hallway or the room you're trapped in and you can't get out. And so it has multiple dimensions of horror that you get to play with. And I think these movies are always fun.
I think all that is very true and good points. The other thing that I think puts this kind of in a different category is it doesn't necessarily require you to suspend belief as other things might with zombies or vampires or werewolves. Who hasn't been in a house alone and heard a creak from a different room that kind of puts you on edge, or from up the stairs, or something that just doesn't seem right in your place of sanctuary, as you said. And it really requires very little to get from there until into a horror movie.
All you have to do is go in your dusty dungeon basement, if you have one, and put your arm around the wall and search for the light. And your mind will fill it with all sorts of things that aren't true, right? Like you might even think it's something silly like a spider web or something, but all you have to do is that, and you're just like your imagination will start to play with you, like you said. And every child looks at the chair in the room at midnight when they're 6 years old and goes, that was a thing I saw, but it was the shadows, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so at a young age, our mind plays these games with us. And yeah, I think it just goes into adulthood. And even when we know it's silly as adults, we're just kind of like, that was a weird noise. But we still look around the corner like, what was that?
Yeah, turn the light on and check,
Yeah.
but always turn
Yeah.
the light on.
But right.
We're going to start in this category. There's a lot of movies you could put in this category. We're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to start with a classic. We're going to do Poltergeist from 1982, directed by Tobe Hooper, famously produced by Steven Spielberg. There was years of debate, if because it has Spielberg touches to it for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely directed by Tobe Hooper, and this is a classic.
I love the combination that they put together. It was the right two people. It was the right time, the early 80s. And it has that whimsical family, like Steven Spielberg, E.T. feel to it. And then with all like the cultural reference, you see like clue boxes and all these like 80s things. But then it also has that slimy, gritty Tobe Hooper feel to it. And it just like came together like a really great collaboration. And I just think it makes for a masterpiece.
There's one scene we're going to talk about that fits that perfectly. It is 100% Tobe Hooper style in the middle of a Steven Spielberg, who famously was working on this and E.T. at the same time, and it started out as one story of a weird presence in your house, and sprung off into two very, very different tales. But yeah, this holds up today. I just watched it a couple days ago for this purpose, and I was just amazed at how quality the movie is, from start to finish.
I thought the same exact thing when I was rewatching it. I was just like, wow, this holds up. Like this was way ahead of its time. You could just tell. Um, you know, what they were able to do, and it's also for the time. Like I really like how a lot of it is integrated with TV, and the TV is always on, and if you watch them, the TV is always on, and it's almost like, I don't know if this is intentional. I can overlook things sometimes, but or overthink things, but like the TV being on in a middle class America, like this overconsumption, and then how that kind of comes into their life and possesses them. It was almost like an allegory to that, like middle class America at the time. I don't know. It just kind of had that feel to it. That the TV's always on. There's always this consumption. They want more and more houses. He's trying to sell these houses, and they get kind of possessed through that. It was interesting.
And I am old enough to have lived with the TV playing patriotic songs and then cutting to static. Something that would be ridiculous to kids of today. Like, what do you mean the TV's not on?
Yeah. Well, everything's always on, right? I mean, Netflix is constantly streaming, iPads. It's just everything's like touch, go, touch. It's just constant, right?
Yeah. Even the regular broadcast channels, when they run out of programming in the middle of the night, they got infomercials, but you never get static anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe this is why.
Was a good touch up.
Maybe this movie, people's like, let's get rid of the static.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, it's freaking people out. Yeah, because whenever you saw like a staticky TV like in a movie or anything like that, now you're like, oh, something's wrong, right? Like, are the people dead? There's a staticky TV up.
Yeah.
Like what happened?
Yeah, became like the creepiest thing for a while.
Yeah.
Our story
still is, by the way. If I walk in a house and see it's staticky TV, I'm leaving. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here.
They didn't pay the cable bill. We start with our family. They live in a new development. It's a very 80s, very Reaganomics kind of a big development where house, a lot of similar styles, cookie cutter as they call it.
And that's not even an observation. He's actually in the beginning reading a Reagan book, right?
Yeah. That's right.
They throw it right in your face. Yeah.
The young girl in the house, the youngest daughter, Carol Ann, wakes up at night and talks to the static on the TV. She's carrying a one-sided conversation that's really weird.
Yeah, she's like, 5? Yes. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. She's answering questions. Yeah.
Yep. The next night, a storm comes, and we see the creepy tree outside of the son's window. And the first time you see this tree, you're like, I would have cut that thing down, because I don't care that the kid's just a young boy, Robbie. That tree is just creepy as heck.
Yeah, and it looks like it's probably rotting from the inside.
The kids end up sleeping with the parents, and in the parents' room, the night before, the dad fell asleep in the living room, and the TV went all the way to the static.
Yeah.
This night, the kids get into bed with the parents, TV's on in the bedroom, TV goes all the way to static. I'm thinking, somebody shut the TV off and go to sleep like a normal person. Please.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're really wealthy, so they're not worried about the electric bill, apparently. Because when I was growing up, man, you couldn't leave lights on. They'd be like, shut the light off if you're not in the room. But all these TVs are on.
So that night in the bedroom, Carol Ann approaches the TV again, and this time you can hear voices in the TV. They're whispers, and they're very mystical.
Play or something like that. Yeah.
But she talks to it, and eventually lights and smoke tendrils, mist, emerge from the TV and shoot into the wall above the bed. The house shakes and everything settles down. Of course, they're in California, so they don't think much of the house shaking. But one of the most famous, and it's, there's, here's Johnny, and there's several, but one of the most famous horror quotes is when the little girl just turns and says, "They're here."
Yeah, it's classic.
Yeah, and it's perfect for.
I smiled. I smiled watching this for the 10th, umpteenth time I've seen this movie, and she did it, and I smiled. She did the thing.
Yeah,
it's like hearing Schwarzenegger say, "I'll be back." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
the mother says, "Well, who's here?" And she says, "The TV people," as if that's an explanation enough. And sure enough, strange things start to happen. The next morning, they're eating, and the son's fork is bent in weird angles, and nobody touched it. A glass breaks randomly. Chairs are moving around on their own, and the dog is acting odd. Well, by the time the dad gets home, they have developed this game where in the kitchen, the chair, you put it on the circle over here, and it flies over to a circle over here all on its own. And they even put Carol Ann, they sit her on the floor, legs crossed with a helmet on in the spot, and she flies across to the other spot. And the only thing that struck me is, as a parent, I don't think this is funny at all.
No, yeah, she's not freaked out enough, right? Like she's like, oh, okay, what's going on here? You know, like yeah, she's not freaked out enough.
The dad, Craig T. Nelson, comes home and he's freaked out, and he starts asking the neighbors if something's going on or they seeing anything weird. But yeah, I think the appropriate response when a chair moves on its own is, "Come on, kids, we're getting out of here."
I'd be gone. Yeah.
Yeah, they're having a pool dug, so there's workers in the yard, and there's mud, and everything's kind of a mess back there. And that night, another storm comes, and this time, the creepy tree breaks through the window and picks up the son, almost like grabs him with branches
Yep.
and pulls him out, and it's almost like trying to swallow him down through its trunk. And it's weird. Okay, it's like, well, trees don't do that, but it's also very well done. It's a very tense scene. There's high winds. It's raining like crazy. The window shatters. The parents are running out trying to save Robbie. And inside the house, everything in the room, Robbie and Carol Ann share a room, is getting sucked into the closet. The door opened, and there's like this huge wind. It's like somebody opens the door on an airplane.
Yeah,
Everything's getting
yeah.
sucked in.
It's like a
And
portal. Yeah.
it's just all gone, including Carol Ann and the creepy clown doll that's in the room with both kids. They rescue Robbie from the tree. The dad's able to wrestle him out of there. A tornado actually comes, picks up the tree, and takes it away. Very, very Evil Dead 2-ish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they go back in and they can't find Carol Ann. She's gone.
So it's almost like all of this was like some weird distraction.
Exactly.
It's like the forces of the universe were like getting everyone outside. Like take the sun so everyone comes out. Then when they're outside, the tornado just takes the tree away, and it gives them time to do what they have to do. Yeah.
Yep, misdirection of the classic sense. Eventually, Robbie, of course, TV's on downstairs, no one's watching it. There's static, and Robbie actually hears her voice through the TV static. And then our movie kicks off, and from this point forward, it's pretty much nonstop.
Yeah. Well, for the pacing of this movie, for a 2-hour movie, it's good. Like it kind of does that from the beginning, but now it goes into hyperdrive.
Yeah, it does. And I saw this movie at the theaters when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And like nothing bothered me, nothing scared me. This movie freaked me out. I came home and I sat in my grandmother's living room for like 3 hours with the light on, nothing else, no TV, nothing, just sat there thinking about this movie. It affected me. It really had probably the most impact on me of any movie I had seen. Part of it was I was probably too young to watch it. I saw it a couple months later as the second feature at the drive-in, and it was like, okay, this is good, but I don't know why it affected me so much. But it really freaked me out the first time I saw it.
I think we all have those movies when we're young that just kind of freak us out. I think mine was like Night of the Demons 3 or something. I saw that when I was like 9 years old, and I was like, I should not. I was afraid to go to the bathroom because of the toilet scene for like years.
It's they end up hiring paranormal investigators to come and look at the place, and it's a funny scene because the one guy's talking about a train that moved across the room, and he photographed it, and it took 7 hours to move this distance.
Yeah.
And it was
invisible. And he's like, it's impressive video footage.
He's like, yeah, but I time lapsed it, and you can see the whole thing. It's amazing.
Craig
and then they open the door to the kids' room, and there's just stuff swirling and flying around in every direction. And they've obviously never seen anything like it. They shut the door, and you can see the woman, her hand is just shaking, like
when they're trying to have the tea. Yeah.
What are we talking about here?
Well, Craig T. Nelson's like, yeah, okay, but he looks hungover. He hasn't shaved in like a week, and like he's listening to his story, like, yeah, that's cool, sounds interesting. Check, and he just opens the door, like, wait till you see this.
Yeah, and they see that there's almost like a fuzzy portal in the ceiling of the living room, connected to wherever these beings are.
You know what it
And
seemed like to me? It seemed like the inside of that portal, it seemed like an intestine, like the belly of the beast,
yeah,
right? It almost had this like breathing, like organ feel to it, like, and it was like the intestine to the like the portal to the belly of the beast kind of thing.
yeah, yeah. And random old pieces of jewelry, watches drop out of this thing into the living room, kind of the connection from beyond, which was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Um, the camera guy, he has a hallucination. He goes into the kitchen, and the first thing he sees is a steak crawling itself across the counter. Then he hallucinates maggots all over the food he's eating. He goes into the bathroom and starts pulling his own face apart and just a gloopy, sloppy, gory mess. And to me, I'm like, that's all Toby Hooper right there.
Yeah, all of that was too. And like was this movie PG-13 or R? I can't even remember.
I don't know. I think this movie predates the PG-13 rating.
Hmm. Good. Yeah, that's interesting. But it was fun watching that scene because when you go back and you're kind of analyzing these movies, I couldn't help but think about how they did that scene. Like you had a guy with like two hands come up and it was a fake mask, but it was like
Yeah,
it was like real hands pulling the mask off. It was the
yeah,
way they shot it. I was like, oh, that's actually really creative.
yeah. The opposite of what you often see is the real face and a fake arm.
Yeah,
With the camera separating the two, so it looks like it's the arm.
yeah.
It was
But
kind
you
of the
see these
reverse of
hands
that.
digging away. Like it was just really cool. I like the way it did it. It was creative.
It was. The group witnesses astral projections coming down the stairs. And first, there's like this elegant, smoky, misty woman, and then just all these lights. And they watch it back on video, and each light seemed to be a person, and they seem to
Yeah.
be an old
Some kind
time
of
person.
bipedal hominid, right? It was like you could tell they had a head and yeah.
And they all go up and disappear into the ceiling through that portal. They ship Robbie off to the grandma's, which I would have done immediately, not waited for how many hauntings we're going to experience before we get the other kids safe. And at work, the dad's boss offers him a new place on the hill overlooking the development. He said, "Beautiful. What do you think of this view? It's beautiful. You get to look over everything." And you can't see it first. He's like, "Well, yeah, it's the view's beautiful." And he turns around and says, "Not much room for a pool. They're right up against a fence of a cemetery." And he says, "Oh, don't worry about that. This is phase 5. We've already had made arrangements to have the cemetery moved. It's just going to be like 5 miles away." And tells him that we've done it before. Phase 1, which is where Craig T.
Which
Nelson and his family
yeah,
live.
and he's like, listen, it's not an Indian burial ground. We actually move we're respectful. We move everything properly, you know.
Well, now we get the arrival of Tangina. She is somebody that the paranormal investigators bring in to cleanse the house. And Zelda Rubinstein is amazing in this role. I thought about her voice, not only what she says, but how she says it and the cadence she delivers every line with. It adds so much to the creepiness and the overall atmosphere of the movie. She is flawless in the movie.
It's one of the most iconic parts of the movie to me. Whenever I think of this movie, I think of her role. Like I can't separate the two. It's just, like some of the actors you could replace easily with other actors. But her role is iconic to this film.
And if you haven't seen it, she's got to be 4 foot tall. Uh, she's small. She's got this just unique voice. She's
Very
just
unique
awesome.
voice. Yes.
She gets Carol Ann to answer. She makes the parents like you gotta like yell at her, like who disciplines her, and like force her to answer you because she's being surrounded by these beings that want what she has, which is life. And they get her to answer, and they come up with a plan to get her. And they go up to the closet where this all took place, and they throw tennis balls, one, two. They throw them in, and they drop out the ceiling, covered with some kind of astral goop.
some ectoplasm or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but they come through. So her concept is going to work, she believes. They get a long rope, throw the rope into the closet. It comes out of nothing down into the living room, and they basically have a connection from two segments of the real world going into this haunted world, which I was just blown away when at the time I saw this. Like, what a cool concept.
Yeah. I mean, I still think it is, and they still make it's still goopy too the way they do it. Even when I watch it now, I'm like, oh.
So the mom ties off on the rope, and she goes in while the dad's holding the rope, and her goal is simple: get in there, get her daughter, and get out. And once she enters the closet, a giant skull-like presence that fills up the entire closet space and more comes snarling and roaring out at the father. And I don't know how else to describe it. It looks like a giant skull, but with life in it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And then while this happens, Mom and Carol Ann fall out just like the tennis balls did into the living room, covered in ectoplasm. And they scoop them up and they rush them to a prepared bath, and they revive them and clean them. And there's a great scene where the mother wakes up and they're trying to get Carol Ann, and they've been without their daughter for days now, which has got to be overwhelmingly traumatic. And
Yep.
she finally
They
just
look like
opens.
they haven't looked like they haven't slept.
Oh, sure. It's been a mess. Their house is haunted. There's this poltergeist activity. Their daughter is gone. I can't imagine you get a lot of restful sleep.
Mm-mm.
There's a great scene when she finally the daughter opens her eyes and just looks over and says, "Oh, hi, Daddy," like oblivious to anything that happened.
Yep.
And they break down and everybody's happy. And another classic line from the movie, Tangina announces, "This house is clean." And it's like, okay, this is over. And then you look at the clock and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't over.
It's not over.
Yeah. So the family's packing up to move. The dad quit his job. He told the guy to stick it. He wants nothing to do with him. And they're leaving later that night. One thing that struck me as odd, and we were talking about this when we were rewatching it, moving vans there, they're loading boxes, everything's going in. Dad says, I gotta finish up some things at the office, and then we're out of here tonight. But back in the house, the mom's dyeing her hair, taking a bath, laying in bed. The kids are in bed. All their stuff is still there.
Not stuff you do when you're getting ready to move. Right.
Yeah. And like, what did they pack? Everything is still there.
Right. I'd be freaking out. I'd be staying up all night, just packing stuff, getting everything ready. Like you're getting ready to get on an airplane the next day, I'd just be getting ready. They're all just relaxing. Dyeing the hair thing.
In one of my favorite scenes, and one of the scenes that freaked me out the most, was they're back in the kid's bedroom, and there's that creepy clown. And in the first time with the first storm, Robbie threw his coat over it to hide it. Well, this time, it's sitting there again, looking at him all creepy. He throws his coat, and it falls and misses. So the clown's sitting there. Robbie hears a loud noise. He's looking around. Another storm, of course. And he looks back, and the clown's gone. And in a scene that's been really replicated 1,000 times since, he does the slow look over one edge of the bed underneath, the slow look over the other edge of the bed underneath. And when he sits back up, boom, the clown is sitting there. It's an awesome jump scare. And the clown wraps its long arm around Robbie's neck and pulls him under the bed. And they start to struggle.
One of the most iconic parts of the film to me, or one of the parts that I remember the most when I think of this movie, is the clown under the bed. I grew up with that trope, like the clown under the bed. There's something on your bed. So when I saw this movie, it strikes you. It's still good. I watched this movie for Halloween with my son. He's 12, and he wanted to watch it. I was like, all right, we can watch this. And that's part made him jump and scare. Like, I looked over and laughed. I was like, "To get you?" And he kind of laughed. He's like, "Yeah."
Yeah, it's seeing it young, like your son. It was like, okay, you got a break from your nerves being frazzled from all this stuff happening, and then
Yeah.
it just hit you.
Yeah.
It
He
was
jumped on the couch. I laughed. I was like, I got him.
it was executed perfectly, and it was also
Mhm.
timed so well in the flow of the movie to just when you think you're okay, you're not okay.
Yeah. It's flawless execution for this movie for sure.
The the clown's got him under the bed. The closet door opens again, and it starts to pull everything in, sucking in Carol Ann again. And I'm just thinking, there's no way I would have laid back down in that house in that bed. I wouldn't have put my kids there. You got stuff to finish up at work. We'll meet you at the hotel. We'll meet you in another town. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way I would be
The
doing that.
dad's in real estate.
Yeah. So the mom, we cut to the mom. She's done dyeing her hair. She's out of the bath. She's in bed in her pajamas. Like, I thought you were leaving. And she is being held by an invisible force, preventing her from getting to the kids. And in fact, it pushes her up the wall and into the ceiling and across the ceiling in a pretty cool executed scene that, you know, sure just looked like she got crawled across the
Yeah.
ceiling.
Yeah. It almost has the, that like, Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one, up against the wall in the ceiling.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of reminded me that I was like, oh, okay, this was like before that.
Yeah. But predates it by 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So she goes to the kid's bedroom. She finally gets free from flopping around the ceiling, and she's confronted by this spectral, smoky monster that's growling and blocking the door. It's like a dog with super long spider legs and
Yeah.
a monster face.
Almost like that, those big things from Star Wars. It had that like shape to it, really long
Yeah,
legs, but yeah, like a dog, yeah, and like a growl. It was cool.
yeah, very very creepy. Um, and it's not letting her into the room. So, uh, and inside we see the room, the closet. It's not a closet anymore. It's formed fleshy like material all around it, and it's like a pulsing mouth.
I think that's what I was referring to earlier with the belly to the beast thing. I think that's the
Yeah,
scene I was thinking of. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. That's the scene I was thinking of. Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. And it's just trying to pull everything in. So the mom runs outside looking for help. It's pouring rain. I don't know where they live, but like the weather there sucks.
It's storming constantly.
Every day is a storm.
Where are they? Seattle?
She falls into the swimming pool that's being dug, and at this point, it's just a hole of dirt. It's not a finished
Mud.
pool in any.
Yeah, yeah.
And she down into the water. It's water from the rain, the constant storms, and she's surrounded by skeletons.
Yeah, they
And,
pop up. There's some more jump scares. Yeah.
and interesting of note, these are all real skeletons.
Yes, I remember you telling me that years ago.
Yes, it was cheaper to buy actual skeletons through a medical supply company
How
than
is
to
that
get
legal?
fake ones as props.
Yeah. How is that legal? Is that legal? Can you do that?
They did it. I don't know.
I guess it
Spielberg
is.
can
Yeah,
do
right.
anything.
Yeah, they did it. Yeah. Wow.
But the actress didn't know until after, which is kind of mean. But yeah, they should have told her right as they were filming to add genuine.
I was just gonna say
fear
that would have
to her.
added the extra, like, right? Like they would have been more freaked out to have to do the scenes, right? And
We see caskets start popping up through the ground, just popping up. They flop open. Another skeleton comes out. It's an absolute mess. Everything's coming unraveled. The mom makes it back into the house, gets down the hallway. It becomes one of those elongated. The hallway gets longer as you try to run. You'll never get there type of things. But she finally gets to the kid's door and gets it open. Inside, she finds the kids hanging on to the headboard. Robbie's holding on. Carol Ann's holding on, and she's trying to get them, trying to save them. And she finally reaches in. She gets a hold of Robbie's hand. Robbie gets Carol Ann, and she pulls them all out before they get sucked into this pulsing mouth. And it is the last scene of the mouth. It's funny you called it the belly of the beast, but the last scene of the mouth, there's an actual at the bottom. If you look closely, there's like a tentacle that's sliding out and then like trickles back in, like the mist when they at the back door in the grocery store. Very just adds another level of creepiness to it. they get outside, and the dad is just pulling in, and the caskets are popping up, the ground is shaking and splitting open, blocking his way into the house.
It's just shenanigans. There's
And of
lightning.
course,
Yeah.
yeah, it's insanity. Of course, his boss shows up. He's been trying to talk him out of quitting, and he sees all this. And Craig T. Nelson grabs him, and he's yelling. He's like, "You son of a bitch! You moved the headstones, but you left the bodies. You left the bodies." And I remember as a kid, I was just like, "Oh my God, no, they didn't. That's unbelievable."
Yeah. Yeah. The light bulb.
The mom and the kids get out of the house. The house is ripping apart. Caskets are flying up everywhere. They all get in the family car. Just the older sister, who has been just off staying with friends because this whole thing has been messing with her. She arrives at the last minute. They all get in the family car and drive off. And the house, bolts of light come shooting out of the house and at the onlookers, including one hits the boss, which he deserves. And then the
Yeah.
house folds in on itself and disappears in a flash of light.
Another iconic scene, and actually really well done special effects for 1982.
Very, very well done. Yes. And our family drives away. They go check into a motel, and they shut the door. And then, in a little bit of humor, the door opens, and the rolling TV cart gets rolled out onto the outdoor balcony, left, and they shut the door again. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, the end.
And it it's best described as a roller coaster ride. If you were going to criticize this movie, and I was thinking about this rewatching it, man, they throw everything in the kitchen sink into this movie. It's
Yes.
got every single thing.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. Like it is packed. I mean, they spared no expense. They spared no trope. They threw it all in, like you said. And you what else would you expect from two masters of film like coming together? Like this is how you're gonna put your flavor on it. We're gonna have some Steven Spielberg and some Toby Hooper, and they did both their flavors, and it just mashed together like wonderfully.
Yeah,
And it still holds up. Like
yeah, it does.
You won't
It does.
watch it to this day, and you're like, wow.
And you mentioned all throwing every trope in there. They created some tropes.
Yeah.
A lot of things you saw in that movie became, commonplace throughout the rest of the horror films. It's just really, really well done.
Yeah, 100%.
Our second film in the category House of Horror is a film from 2019 called Haunt, directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. And this is more of a extreme haunted house kind of thrill adventure, if you will. Had you seen this movie before?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out a couple years ago. I think I saw it on Shudder or something like that. But yeah,
Okay. This movie has some interesting premises to it. There's a lot of extreme haunted house movies out there now, like the Hell House LLC franchise.
Yep.
This one has a little bit of a unique twist to it that we'll get into here. We start with Harper as our main character. She's having boyfriend trouble with Sam, who it seems is a bit abusive. And she goes out with a group of her friends for Halloween. Kind of reluctantly, they drag her off to a party. The group meets up with some guys, and they end up all deciding to go to check out an extreme haunted house on the outside of town. And they get there, and they are greeted by a creepy clown who does not talk, but takes their phones and puts them in a lockbox and gives them liability waivers to review.
Well, I think one important part that I think one good detail they added to this part of the movie was they show other people going in. So as they pull up, there's some other people like going in. So like, oh, okay, this place is kind of live. There's people doing this. It's not that creepy, right? Like it's creepy, but like on purpose.
It's legit.
Like if it's legit. If they had showed up and it was just all empty and there was no cars anywhere, or that would have been like, we're not doing, you know what I mean? But there's other people at the door, so that kind of adds to the realism of what they're going to get into.
Yeah, and it's interesting. They're reviewing the liability waivers, and they seem to be like undecided on whether they go in or not. And then they hear a loud scream from inside, and it's like, oh, we're going.
Yeah.
it's funny.
I personally, I would never do one of these. I've heard of them. But yeah, there's like a line you can't. I love haunted houses. I love going to them. But like these extreme ones, where they maybe
Yeah.
throw a bucket of water on you. Like, they'll try to like physically try to mess you. They put you in a coffin and stuff like that. I'm like, nope.
Yeah, psychologically torture you
Yeah.
till you can't
Yeah, I'm all
take it
set.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny in any real scenario, you hear screaming, you go the other way. In a haunted house where you want to be
You're like,
scared, you hear
yeah,
screaming like, "That's for us. Let's go."
let's go. Yeah.
Inside, they're looking around, and it seems like a pretty standard haunted house at first, and then they get to a scene that kind of opens up in front of them. There's a woman screaming, and a person in a witch mask, unzips the body bag and then takes a hot poker and burns this woman in the body bag, zips her back up, and the scene closes. And they're like, "Wow, that was super
Yeah, just
realistic, really,
little
really well
golf
done."
clap. Yeah, they're kind of like, that was impressive. What's next?
They get to a maze, and the group kind of splits up. And Bailey, Nathan, and Angela, they get to a part. It's funny you mentioned this earlier about the reaching around the corner and the unknown. And all I could think of was they have holes in the wall that you put your arm in, and the description says guess the body part.
Well, they did this in sixth grade. Like when we had haunted houses in sixth grade at school, you'd put your hand in something and it was spaghetti, and you're like, "Oh, it's brains," or you put your hands with the gra This is a sixth grade trick. I remember this from being a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, because surely they brought real brains into your sixth grade classroom, right?
But they still made you, but the psychological trick
Yeah,
still works. 'Cause you're a kid and you're like, "Oh, what is
yep,
this?" Like, and it's saucy or something. You don't know. It's like a bunch of grapes or eyeballs, right?
yep,
Like,
yep.
and they kind of did that here. Yeah, it's funny.
So there's three. They all go and they put their arm in, and Bailey goes last. And before they left the house, she had taken Harper's mom's ring. She just comes in and steals jewelry from her and borrows it, but she loses the ring. She's got her arm in the hole. She loses the ring and gets slashes on her arm, actual cuts. She pulls her arm out and she's bleeding and the ring's gone. And they're like, "What the heck?" And this is
Yeah,
just
and I
the
mean, like
first.
she pulls her. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is just the first indication that things might be not quite a show.
Yeah, because when she pulls her arms out, it's not like like a cat scratches or anything. Like all of a sudden, like it happens, like her arm just opens up, like it was like sharp razor blades.
Yeah,
And yeah, and all of a sudden it's like it just opens up.
yeah. It's like right there. I'm out.
Yeah, yeah,
And the other section, Harper, Evan, and Mallory, they get to a spot where there's three coffins, and they figure out you have to put yourself in the third coffin and shut the door, which will open up the access to the next room. So they go through there. Mallory goes last, and she's afraid of spiders. They had to go through a big web area mixed with fake spiders and real spiders, and that was kind of creepy.
yeah.
She goes last, and instead of the door opening, spiders just dump into the coffin on her, and she freaks out, of course. But she finally gets through, but then they lose her. Mallory's gone. And the group ends up back together. They must come around and they meet at another part.
Yeah,
And
it's
they're
like a
all of
focal
them,
point where they have to. Yeah,
yeah, and they're all together except for Mallory. And in front of them, a new scene opens. And the witch unzips Mallory from a body bag. And instead of burning her with it, she sticks the red hot poker, impales her through the skull. And
yeah.
then quickly the scene closes and gone again. And
And,
now they're
and there's
like,
actually there's an actual curtain, like it was a
yeah.
play scene. Yeah,
And then they're like, wait a minute, that seemed real, and we can't find Mallory.
yeah.
So they start to get a little nervous, particularly with the cuts on Bailey's arm.
And Mallory being impaled.
Yeah, like was it? This doesn't look like a special effect. That's
Yeah,
our
I think
friend.
Bailey's like, was she acting? Is she playing along? Like their heads being messed with. Yeah,
Absolutely. They now they're all nervous. They send Nathan ahead to try to find an exit, and he goes into a room that's covered with all like mannequins with sheets over them, like
yep.
like Michael
Which is
Myers in the original Halloween, where he he puts the sheet on and the glasses, and it's just a room full of that
And
until you
what's weird
finally.
because it's a creepy, it's a simple thing, but it's creepy and well done. Like it goes right back to the, like, guess what's in here with your hand, right? A simple sixth grade trick, but it's effective. And like same with this, it's like they're just mannequins with sheets on them, and it's creepy. Yeah,
Yeah, because your first thought is which one of these is going to move.
yeah, yeah.
And finally Nathan sees one moving, and he's yelling for help, and he's like, you got to help us. And he's like, all right. The guy tells him his name is Mitch, and he'll help him out. And it's like, it's just a show. And they're like, well, we saw our friend. Like, no, it's all part of the act. She's outside waiting for you. And he tries to smooth everything over.
Yeah.
Well,
It's pretty convincing too. He's like, listen, this isn't supposed to happen. I'm going to help you guys get out of here. And they're starting to feel a little relieved. Yeah.
he's very convincing.
Yeah.
Except while he is gone, Angela is trying to reach through a fence. They see a crowbar. They want to get it for self-defense. So she's reaching through. She can almost reach it. Can almost reach it. And then her hand just gets stomped, and you can hear the bones cracking. And it's like, okay, that's not fake. And
Yeah.
she screams, and a man with a devil mask emerges and kills her with a pitchfork. It's like, okay, it's on now.
Yeah. 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 They're like rats in a maze at this point.
And Mitch is still pretending he's going to lead them out, and they're going to go back through the maze. And Evan goes first. Evan's kind of like the wise guy character. He goes first, and then Mitch goes second. And when Mitch gets to the end, he quickly boards up the exit so nobody else can get out. And we know now Mitch is not going to help.
No, he's been leading them along. It's almost like this is part of the haunted house. Like someone's gonna come and help relieve you. Psych. You know what I mean? Like it's all part of it, right? Like they have like all these like bit parts that kind of come in and they play.
Yeah. So the others are in the maze, but there's no exit anymore. So Evan exits. He's out in a graveyard, and Mitch is behind him. And Mitch kills him with a cool claw hammer up into the teeth to rip his head in half type of move.
I thought that was a pretty original kill. Actually, I haven't really seen anything like that particularly. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, it was different. There's some
Right
some
from
good
the
kills
teeth,
in
and
here.
they show it. It almost reminds me of the scene in Poltergeist when he's like ripping his own face off, but it was like the other way, and it was just pretty cool.
Yeah, opposite, right?
Yeah.
Bailey and Harper are in the tunnel, but they activate a trap door accidentally, and Nathan falls through, and he's into another area, and he's basically into like an operational area where you get all the equipment ready, and almost like a garage type of thing. The Devil Man has Harper cornered, and he's creepy. The mask is creepy. He takes the mask off, and he's creepier without the mask.
I thought it was actually really a very gnarly design for a bad guy. How he has like the black eyes that are the tattooed eyes,
Yeah.
and then he's got the piercings, and then I just thought the character was just really well done. Whoever did the cosmetics for that, A+.
Yeah, we find out that all of our characters are actually under their masks having body transformations done to be like their characters. And
then
Devil
later
Man is particularly creepy.
Yeah, and then later one of the guys that tries to help them get out says, "I don't know, one of them's a tattoo artist." Yeah.
And so the Devil Man has Harper cornered, and Nathan appears with a nail gun and shoots the devil with the nail gun, and Harper gets away for a period of time. And then all the lights go out. And Harper steps on a board of nails, and Nathan's still in this operational area because there was like a cage separating the two. So he was able to save Harper, but he's not with her. He does find Harper's cell phone. We had seen the clown character take all their cell phones out, and most of them are locked, and he just shoots them all in a microwave and toasts them.
Yeah,
Harper's still there.
One of the lines I actually liked in this movie, it's just a good shot, is when the devil he like takes his mask off and you see him like fully revealed, and he just kind of with this evil grin looks at Harper and he's like, "Who's Sam?" Like, like, and it's kind of I thought was really cool because they're going through the cell phones and like Sam's the boyfriend. And he
Right.
just kind of looks at it like, who's that? Like, I don't know. I thought that scene was really cool.
He's like a jealous devil, but he'd never met him before, either
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
them. So um, Nathan is able to send their location to Sam because it was their most recent contact. So he just shared location with Sam, who we know is her boyfriend, who they're having trouble, but at this point they're looking for help anywhere they can get it.
Yeah.
Harper makes it to a room marked the end. She must find a key to get out of the room. She finds notes and clues, and it's almost like an escape room scenario.
But yeah, it's like escape room slash Saw, right? Like there's like gotta do
Yeah,
like you gotta like where's the key? Yeah.
she pulls back the sheets and the covers. The bed's soaked in blood, and there's dolls with creepy eyes. But she finds enough clues that the key is underneath the bed. She has to crawl under the bed, and we see a flashback to her growing up, hiding from an abusive father who's abusing her mother. Kind of brings a little significance to the mother ring that was lost, and just
Yeah.
gives a little depth to her character.
And then also makes you wonder if they've been stalking her and they know her backstory and they kind of created this room for her because it's a little girl's room,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, and
yeah,
they put the key under the bed and like maybe that's how badly they're psychologically messing with her.
yeah. She gets the key, and the devil man is in. He's still stalking her, and she stabs him in the eye with the key. And she opens the final door, and you hear a mechanism start to click and turn and click and turn.
Like a music box, right?
Yeah, like a Jack in the Box, and it triggers a shotgun that fires through the door. She, because of her injuries and stepping on the board, is crawling, so it's no damage to her. It kind of blasts the door above her. But the devil man catches up to her, and he's on top of her, and he wants to finish her off, but the mechanism is winding again. So she forces his head up with her hand, and the shotgun fires this time, blowing the devil's head completely off.
Yeah.
Which I thought was cool of her. She's got that final girl do whatever it takes to survive kind of thing
She
going.
has a lot of bludgeoningly cool kills towards the end. Yeah.
A masked person enters the room with Harper, who's now just completely on edge, and she stabs the masked person with a pitchfork. And she pulls off the mask, and it was Bailey, who we hadn't seen since the maze. She disappeared. She was tied up and gagged, and just they made her stagger into the room. So Harper killed her with the pitchfork,
Yeah.
not on purpose, but didn't know it was her.
Very diabolical kill right there.
One thing I liked about this movie was Sam arrives, and we're thinking, okay, Sam is going to help save everyone, but we don't like Sam just from what we've heard. We've not really been introduced to the character, but Bailey made it pretty clear that he's a jerk, he's abusive. We know what he does to you, so we don't really like Sam, but he might save him anyways.
Right. Which is actually which is good. The character development and kind of keeping the audience on edge with that. That was very well done.
Yeah, and where I really think it keeps you on edge. Okay, Sam shows up, and it's going to change the dynamic here. And he triggers a tripwire. He gets a dart to the throat.
It's a bolt. I had originally thought it was a dart, but then when you go back and look, when he takes it out, it's a big like like a 3/4 inch bolt. Like it's
Okay. Yeah. All right, good. He gets a bolt to the throat.
yeah,
He
it's
falls
archaic.
down. His hand is crushed by a cinder block dropped onto it, and then his head is smashed in with a sledgehammer. So our savior Sam is quickly dispatched and has
One and
no
done.
impact on the story whatsoever.
Has no impact.
I'm like, okay, so much for Sam being the hero.
And we got a cool kill out of it though. It was pretty cool because the way what was unique about that kill is when he bring when he's on the ground, usually it's over the head tomahawk like kill, but he goes in with a golf swing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Which I think would be really impactful. Well,
Yeah,
neither one
yeah.
would feel good, of course, but
Right, but for some reason, like that whole neck snapping back, that he goes in with a golf swing to the front of his head.
meanwhile, Harper has detached the shotgun from its mechanism, reloaded it, and she shoots Chainsaw Man with the shotgun. And I like how all the characters were like your horror standard characters. There's a ghost, there's a
Ghost,
witch,
vampire,
there's a
yeah,
chainsaw, there's
yeah.
the clown. That was just kind of cool. Like, oh, here, take every horror character trope, and you'll all be one of them. The devil.
I thought the same thing because in my notes when I was watching it, that's what I was like. Okay, ghost guy, clown guy. Yeah, I was like putting them down in the notes and devil guy.
So she shoots him, the chainsaw guy, and hits the ghost man with the sledgehammer. So she's taking him out. She's becoming, the true final
It's
girl.
getting awesome. Yeah, yeah.
And she finds another masked guy, and she's about to do something to him, and he pulls his mask off, and he's like, "Yeah, I just work here. They're all crazy." He's like, "I just wanted a job." They started really killing people.
Another great trope.
So we don't know if this guy's legit or not until we quickly find a man in a zombie mask, shoots him in the head to shut him up. So he probably was legit.
Yeah, he said that they coerced him. They said that they were going to take his face off if they didn't do what he had to do. So he would run errands for them and stuff. So
yeah. So she meets back up with Nathan, and they're trying to escape. And the witch mask stops them. But Harper overcomes her and then smashes her head in the metal trapdoor over and over until the witch woman is no more.
Yeah.
They run outside, and the zombie mask follows, and they're in like a fenced in, razor tape. It's almost like a prison type of fence.
Prison yard, yeah.
And the zombie mask guy is chasing him, and Nathan helps Harper get over, and he's got a baseball bat, and he's going to finish Zombie Man. The zombie guy shoots him in the shoulder, but Nathan gets on him and finishes him with a baseball bat, and the two of them get away injured. But
they get away. Yeah. And it's another one of these tropes for this movie is they get away, and it's like, it's like the morning's the sun's starting to come up, right? It's like they finally escape at daytime.
Yeah. The clown, who hasn't really participated in any of this but is clearly a part of it, he burns down everything. The haunted house is gone. And Nathan and Harper find Sam's truck. Keys are in it. They get in and drive away. We see a scene where Harper goes to her house, her childhood house that we saw in the flashback, and she goes up to the front door and hugs her mom. But right behind her mom, the clown jumps out, and she wakes up. It's a dream.
Yeah.
And she's in the hospital, and the nurse tells him, "Hey, you're going to be okay. Your friend's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine." And now we cut to the parents' house for real. And we see the clown character breaking in. Back to your original idea about this was all designed for Harper, which I'm not sure why. They don't offer any explanation.
Which I like. But right before she's getting ready to leave the hospital, they say, "Hey, we need you to sign these release forms," kind of going back to the waiver when they went there originally. And she kind of has this like, why do I need to sign that? Like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool that the clown breaks into the house and immediately gets stuck onto the floor.
Sticky stuff. The same sticky stuff that she was sticking on earlier with their hands.
Yeah, they'd done the same thing to Harper, but now he's stuck to the floor. And she uses, and now it's like Home Alone for adults. She's got him stuck, and she's abusing him, and then just finally shoots him dead. Ending the whole thing.
Let's take that mask off, that final line, and then boom. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was kind of a satisfying ending. Like, it was one of those movies that could have went in a lot of different directions, but she fought through a lot. We find out she's been through abuse as a child, had an abusive boyfriend, but really stood up at the end and wiped everybody out.
And what I like the way they did it was they didn't go too deep into it. Like they didn't like, they trusted the intelligence of the audience with this movie. They kind of just delivered what they wanted to with the haunted house stuff and gave you just enough backstory to let you understand what was going on, like what you just said. And they
Mhm.
didn't have to go too deep into it. Like you get it.
Yeah, this movie is it doesn't bring a lot new to the table. I wouldn't consider it a classic by any means, but it's a lot of fun. There's some good kills. The acting's good. The special effects are good. It's just a good fun movie to if you're looking for, you want a horror haunted house movie. You could do a lot worse than this.
Yeah, throw it in. It's a good one. I recommend it. Like you said, you just hit it on the head. It's just a good fun. It's good acting. It's good direction. It's some good kills. It doesn't make the audience feel stupid. It just kind of just delivers.
Yep, yep, very good. Well, again, our category is House of Horrors. We're looking at haunted houses, and it's a category where you could spend a year straight going
Yeah.
into all the haunted house movies that have been over time. But I think we picked two that offered two completely different perspectives. A classic, true haunted house, and then an extreme haunted house kind of adventurous kill movie.
More of a modern, where a lot of like like you said, like nowadays we're seeing a lot of these modern extreme haunted house movies. So I thought we'd pick a modern one like that. I thought that was a good idea, and you just can't go wrong with Poltergeist.
Yeah, no, good balance for sure.
Mhm.
Well, great category, and that is our show for this week. I'm Jerry. That's Matt. We are the Weekly Horoscope. We'll see you next time. Appreciate you listening as always. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everyone.
Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.